We Need to Talk is sponsored by Mindful Care. You might remember my friend, Dr. Tamir Aldad, from a few episodes back. He just texted to let me know that Mindful Care is now accepting new patients. We all know how hard it is to find an in network psychiatrist without a long wait list, but Mindful Care can see you same or next day for medication management, recovery, and group therapy. No wait. And they take Medicaid, Medicare, and commercial insurance. Visit mindfulcare.com or text or call 516-505-7200 to book your appointment today. Welcome back to We Need to Talk with Dr. Darcy Sterling, where I give you the tools and skills you need to love better so you can live better. In a world where access to explicit content is just a click away, pornography has become a significant part of our sexual landscape. For some, it's just a tool for exploration, a harmless indulgence. For others, the mere thought of their partner viewing porn crosses the line of infidelity. But no matter where you stand, there's no denying that porn has the power to shape our understanding of sex, our desires, and even how we relate to our partners. How does porn consumption impact our romantic relationships? What happens when it becomes a point of contention or a source of connection between partners? Is it possible for couples to navigate this terrain without losing the core of their intimacy? Today, we're diving into the psychological, emotional, and ethical dimensions of porn's influence on love, trust, and sexual satisfaction. And I want to make it clear up front. This isn't a conversation about judgment or moralizing. It's about getting real, about how porn shows up in our relationships, and how we can talk about it openly without fear or shame. Here to help with this conversation is my niece and co-host, Ashton Tardif.
So watching porn is something that we've been taught to do in private, and there's been like a lot of shame around it too for a lot of people growing up. So how do you even raise the topic with your partner to gauge where they stand on the topic of porn?
I like to raise every topic super casually. I think that when you raise it casually, it has less energy behind it. It calms the other person. So I would literally say, what are your thoughts about porn? I know that's not very clever, but that is literally where I would go with it. But when you do that, you have to be prepared to create a safe space for your partner because you want them to be honest and transparent. So if you respond to them with judgment, no matter what your feelings about the topic are, what you're teaching them is that they can't be completely honest with you. So you have to be prepared to hear an opinion that you might not share. And you have to commit to allowing that to be okay, and then be prepared to answer that question yourself. So before you ask a question, be prepared for that to be turned on you, not turned on you, but your partner to ask that same question. And the biggest thing I would caution you against is asking a question where there's only one acceptable answer. Those are gotcha questions. So, and it's not a fair way to ask a question. So if you're someone who has very strong feelings for or against porn, you have to check yourself and you really have to steel yourself and commit to aligning with and being curious about different ways of viewing it.
And I mean, this is kind of a sidetrack question, but do you think that it's an important question to ask in a relationship?
Well, that's so interesting because I only asked Steph, my wife, for the first time in preparing for this episode, truly 2 hours ago. I was like, so I'm prepping for this episode. The topic is porn. And I realized I've never asked your opinion on porn.
Really?
Yeah, I've never asked. It's so, and where I land on the not asking the question is if it's just so accepted to you, or it's so not an issue in your relationship that it never even occurs to you to raise it. So either you find it so morally reprehensible and the two of you are so aligned in that, or it's just not an issue. My assumption is that everybody watches porn unless they're, fundamentally opposed to that. I do think it's Is it an important? I think it depends on how important a topic it is to you. To me, it's not an important topic. If I
Yeah.
want to watch porn, I watch porn. When I don't want to watch it, I don't watch it. I don't give a shit what Steph does around it. And I
Yeah.
didn't know until today, to be honest. We don't watch it together. That's not how we roll.
And I know that's a thing for like other couples, and I know we'll get to this later, but I think that nowadays it's much more prevalent and accessible than it was even like 10 years ago.
We used to have to physically go and buy it, or we would have
Which
to
is,
mail order that shit.
oh my God. Or
I think
Skinamax.
I think I was 11 years old when I saw my first porn. My next door neighbor's parents, I guess, used to watch it together. And it was literally even before like VHS. I think we watched it on their Betamax. So yeah, I think I was 11 or 12 when I first saw porn. And it was, I remember it like it was yesterday. But it is much more prevalent, to your point, more widely available. Kids have access to it, even when
Mhm.
their next door neighbors are not watching it. And yeah, it's a topic that's really worthy of diving
Disgusting.
into.
So, are there ethical considerations around the type of porn that we consume that partners should discuss? And I don't want to pigeonhole anybody here, but I feel like this is something that women are much more aware of than men. But
Mhm.
I could be wrong, but I just, I think historically women are manipulated and taken advantage of, especially I'm sure in this industry. But what are your thoughts on this?
And because of that, we also tend to be better versed in the concerns around it ethically. So, yes, are there ethical concerns around porn and the types of porn that we consume? For sure. I want you to know that in prepping for this podcast, my answer to this was like a minute and 30-second soundbite. I gave it to Steph and she was like, have a seat. I was a women's studies major. Let me educate you on all the concerns. So take a deep breath, have a sip of your wine, Ashton. Here come the answers as informed by my feminist wife, who is a women's studies major. All of her teachers are going to be like high-fiving her. So porn often depicts power imbalances and power dynamics like BDSM, which can involve like extreme power dynamics that may not align with both partners' values or the things that they're attracted to. So
Mhm.
it's for that reason it's important to discuss the difference between representation and realism, what you're interested in fantasizing about versus what you're interested in actually doing together. Understanding how fantasy content differs from real life expectations
Mhm.
is really important, especially around issues around power and control and consent. This sounds vague. I'm going to get very real the further into this conversation we go. We also want to be aware of exploitation of individuals or marginalized groups because they're often fetishized in pornography. So you want to be conscious and mindful of the extent to which you find that appropriate or reprehensible, and your partner as well. Also, content that portrays violence, particularly violence against women, can perpetuate harmful attitudes that can lead to real life violence. And that becomes a thing when young boys, in particular, are learning about sex and they're learning about it through pornography. We have a saying in neuroscience: what fires together wires together. So when we watch porn where, a man is choking a woman, that's pretty typical of
Mhm.
porn. If you're a young person and you see that and that becomes an erotic experience for you, oftentimes those neural networks then begin to fire together. We train our brain through neuroplasticity of how to respond to stimuli, which is
Mhm.
why if you like horror films, you can watch it without having tachycardia or a heart attack, because we've taught our brains the difference between what's real and what we're watching for entertainment. Doesn't work that way with porn because we're having a physiological response to it that we're wanting and craving, which is the purpose for most people of watching porn. We're watching it to be turned on. We're watching it for a certain physiological experience. And the more times we watch explicitly violent porn or power dynamics where a woman is overpowered by a man, the more we are going to crave that type of stimuli in life. So that's important to be conscious of. Another serious concern is porn that involves non-consensual filming. This is where Steph comes in to remind me that where only one person knows that they're being recorded. And this type of porn viewers often find very realistic because, quite frankly, it is quite realistic. It is what is happening. It's important to remember that that's illegal. It's a serious violation of consent, and it raises significant moral and legal issues. Now I'm about to be a buzzkill, so here comes your trigger warning. But do you, Ashton, know what snuff porn is?
So I know the term, but I don't think I could accurately speak to the definition.
Snuff porn refers to a genre of pornography that depicts real-life murder, torture, or extreme violence, often portrayed during sexual acts. The idea behind a snuff film is that they often involve actual death or severe harm to individuals for the purpose of entertainment and sexual gratification. It is highly illegal, it is highly unethical, and any form of real violence or harm for the sake of entertainment is a criminal act. So that is at the top of ethical concerns when it comes to pornography. And there, I think I handled the worst of it. I could go down like a rabbit hole and talk about, how the actors portraying the pornography are treated. I think that's a different episode. I don't think that's what we're here for.
I think the only thing that you didn't touch on that I think has got a lot of light as well is underage.
What an asshole I am. And by the way, I can't believe Steph didn't flag that for me. I'm not going to blame her, but she usually is like, Steph is always on alert for exploitation, but you're absolutely right. Thank you. Yes. So we have to be mindful of the age of the actors in porn.
Yeah. That's definitely something that's been getting a lot of heat recently. And I know that Pornhub, like the largest porn site, I would say, I mean, I don't watch a lot of porn. It doesn't do it for me. I need a plot, like a well built out plot, which typically doesn't happen in porn. I'll just take a really great HBO scene, but I believe they started banning certain search terms on their site from being uploaded, like keywords for SEO that involve anything that could like suggest that someone's looking for a young person, which is,
I feel like that is the bare minimum that these algorithms should be doing for us. So good on you, and like, okay.
Yeah, like, okay.
Appropriate.
Amazing. So there's differences in porn, especially with the inception of OnlyFans, which I touched on earlier, but what's the difference between recorded generic porn and like live porn, like cam girls or cam models, or even, I mean, OnlyFans is essentially like, I want to say D2C, direct to consumer porn, in the sense that like you can almost like make to order porn. Is there a significant difference there in the consumption of it?
For starters, the difference is literally rooted in whether or not there's interactivity, meaning activity between, as you said, B2C, the person selling the service and the consumer. They're going directly to the consumer. So in recorded porn, it's pre-recorded. So there's no real-time interaction. The viewer is a passive observer with no ability to influence the content that they're viewing. And in live cam performances, OnlyFans, all of that, you have an actual person in front of you, which makes the experience interactive. And it also allows the person consuming it, the viewer, to communicate with the performers in real time. Viewers can make requests, giving a sense of personalized experience and engagement. I think for simplicity's sake, Ashton, what we're going to be talking about today is going to be pre-recorded porn. But we absolutely do need to have a follow-up episode with an expert in live cam performances for sure. And I've already got our booker looking out for an expert, for somebody who can speak to that. And if any of our listeners have any suggestions, or if you know any really successful OnlyFans who want to come on, you and I will, of course, treat them with the utmost amount of respect. I think people should make a living however the hell they want. And I'm a big fan of minding my own business. So, and not moralizing on people unless I have a moral opinion about something. And then I'm real quick to shove it down your throat.
Well, you wouldn't be the only one. So hot topic, is watching porn considered cheating or a form of infidelity?
I think that relationships are a contract between two or more people, and those people get to decide what the terms are of that relationship. Early on in your relationship, you get to choose what the terms are, the boundaries. That's why I've been encouraging you, and that's why I encourage my clients and all of our listeners to have the difficult conversations, the serious conversations, the ones that are a little scary. Have them early on, because this is when you're building the terms of your relationship. This is when you have the greatest influence on what you're going to be signing up for. So if you make it clear early on that you are not down with porn and your partner agrees, then that becomes part of the agreement that you enter into. Then, if down the road your partner watches porn when they agreed not to, that's a violation of the relationship. But that is not the same thing as cheating. And I personally think it's bullshit to define porn as a cheat. I think it's a misuse of the term. Now, that's a distinction, I think, with a very important difference. It may be your preference that your partner not watch porn, but that doesn't rise to the definition of infidelity, which is something an individual doesn't get to arbitrarily define. That's something society defines, and porn is not a cheat. You may find it distasteful. It may violate the terms of your relationship if you spell that out clearly, and if your partner consented to the relationship knowing that. Again, which is why I want people to have these serious conversations early on in their relationship. That's not a fucking cheat, you guys.
Yeah.
Not a cheat.
And I agree with you on that point, where I think that it straddles the line of cheating. And I actually would consider this a form of cheating, is when we bring into the OnlyFans and liveness of it all. Because if my partner is, usually it costs money, spending money on porn, interacting with the performer, the interaction in and of itself, for me, feels like cheating. It takes it a level deeper. You're not just looking for the gratification or the pleasure of viewing something. You want interaction. You want connection of some sort. And I have a lot of friends who have friends or have experienced their partner. They have found their partner spending money and interacting with women on OnlyFans, on social media. And they feel cheated on. I'm like, you know what? That is cheating to me. Would you disagree?
That feels fair to me, because I do think that there's a connection, there's an interaction, there's the ability, I mean, I don't fucking know, Ashton. Again,
unless previously discussed.
I'm not the moral police, because I also think that, like, going to a strip club, I don't have a problem. Again, I know that I know that I tilt in a progressive direction, and I tend to not want to police my partner. I tend to want less roadblocks to them being who they need to be, so that they can be whoever the hell they are. But I hear your point. I think you raised some important distinctions. How would you feel, Ashton, if your boyfriend said, would you like to watch an OnlyFan with me?
And interact with them?
Well, I don't know if you would be interacting with them.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed. I would want to understand what the overarching goal was there. Like, are you wanting to have a shared experience with me, or were you wanting to do this anyways and you felt an obligation to involve me out of our commitment to monogamy or the relationship.
Mm.
So I would want to understand kind of what the goal was there and then talk about it from there. I'm a very open-minded person, but I would want to understand and kind of set mutual understanding of how it would make me feel and where it would be too far for me. And for
Yeah.
me, it would always be when there's money involved and when there is extended interaction or really any interaction. I think, and you talked about strip clubs earlier, there's a line with that too, because I don't
There
have a
is.
problem with my partner going to a strip club. I like strip clubs. I think they're fun. There's a difference between going and viewing them ethically and then going into a back room or
Getting a
you know,
lap dance.
yeah, or doing other activities that are not always listed on the menu, which doesn't happen at all strip clubs, which I know. But I think there's a line. And as long as that line is clear and understood by both parties, then I don't have a problem. But yeah, I mean, I would never be a partner that considers viewing porn as cheating. I don't. We're
Yeah.
human. It's visual. We're human. I wouldn't expect my partner to solely only be attracted and get off to me for the rest of their entire life. That's kind of crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
So, I'm very flexible there. But, you know, I've
I
also,
think you raised some really important points. I like the idea that you would want to have a conversation to explore what it is he was looking to get out of that experience with you,
Mhm,
why he wanted you involved, whether or not he was planning to do that by himself, whether this felt more obligatory to invite you in,
mhm,
and then what he wanted your role to be and what he wanted the outcome of it to be. I think asking questions is always the way through things.
mhm.
We just have to be curious and ask questions without it feeling like there is a sledgehammer that our partner can't see behind us that is waiting to get thrust onto them if they give us the wrong answer in a thump. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah. And not to like make anyone feel bad if they feel this way, but I think the more strict you are about your partner viewing porn or how rigid you are, it might subconsciously create like a weird dynamic in your partner's mind around it, which might make them want it more because it's more forbidden. So that's just how I've always thought about it. I like to give people freedom, but everyone's
I
different.
I was talking to one of our team members about obviously this topic earlier in the week as I was prepping for this, and I said, if if I was ever told I couldn't watch porn, I'd be watching it 24/7. Like, if you ever want me to become obsessed with something, tell me I
Yeah.
can't do it.
Right.
I could
Right.
never. I would feel choked, I would feel, trapped, I would
And not in the
feel
fun way.
suffocated, and not in the fun way.
Mhm.
Yes, and not in the fun way. So for that purpose, I am grateful that my wife has the clinical skills to know that, like, let Darcy do what she wants, and then she's a lot less curious. Uh, and
I'm not.
that is how I roll. And I do think there's something to be said about what you just pointed out. I think it sometimes creates more of a temptation to do that very
Mhm.
thing that you've prohibited your partner from doing. And I think that it can sometimes create, I mean, we'll get into more of this later, but like, where do you draw the line?
Right.
Where are you drawing the line? But anyway,
Yeah.
back to you, Ashton.
Um, so my next question is something that I think overarchingly has a really important impact, especially on people who are in the younger generation. I know it did for me, but it's how it can impact you viewing sex. And I know this also differs based on women versus men because it creates different expectations based on your gender and the kind of porn you're consuming. I personally only ever watched porn out of curiosity and to understand what people did during sex because the Catholic education around sex, there was like a health discussion, like a health class discussion, but like I still had so many questions around it. Besides the fact that you can have children out of it. I'm like, I know that's not why people just do this.
Mhm.
Um, so I want to hear from like a clinical perspective how it can actually impact both genders viewing sex.
first and foremost, it can create unrealistic body standards
Mhm.
for both men and women. You know, we don't all look like porn stars. And I don't think that's a news flash. It can create a whole different level of expectation around how we perform sex,
Mhm.
the ways in which sex works, the role of intimacy and emotional connection, because porn often lacks, as you well know, the emotional connection that real life relationships require. And certainly heteronormative relationships often require. Most women are not just DTF.
Hot and ready to go.
You know, they
Yeah.
require some words. And so, you know, focusing primarily on the physical aspects of sex is not necessarily something that you're going to be able to carry forward into your relationship sex. And if you expect it to, you're going to hit roadblocks.
Mhm.
It can foster unrealistic expectations around frequency of sex, and it can lead to a focus on the physical gratification over the emotional bonding. And over time, if it's quickie after quickie after quickie, over time that can erode intimacy between couples. It also often is depicted in stark gender roles. So, reinforcing stereotypes where men are more dominant than women are more submissive, promoting specific power dynamics. Rape is often, you know, a thing in porn. It can create mismatches in desires or in expectations, with one partner assuming certain behaviors should be the norm. You're not just you're not just thrusting without any foreplay and your woman's going to have an orgasm and it's not going to happen simultaneously with yours. I know
Mhm.
that's not a news flash to anyone listening to this, but it is a real concern. And I'm so surprised that porn hasn't evolved to become a little bit more complicated to keep people whose IQ is above room temperature on a summer day, you know, engaged in it. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
do, but just quickly to interject, what I think has contributed to the rise in certain types of porn was the category of homemade porn, where it features like real couples actually having sex. And I know this was very popular on Tumblr, which
mhm.
has since banned porn. But there was like an ask of people being like, hey, this feels manufactured. This doesn't feel real. I don't exactly need 4K Ultra HD shot of you doing this position where I can literally see the razor bumps on this woman's genital area. I just want to feel like it would be like me having sex with something. Like I
Mhm.
want to feel like it could be me. So I feel like that is a genre or a category of porn that has risen in popularity because of that. But if you are watching porn so frequently, and obviously people only want to upload porn or a video where they're doing quote unquote good work or it's like something noteworthy. If you're consistently, and correct me if I'm wrong, getting off on videos where it's very performative, very long-winded, very, intricate, you're going to maybe start to expect that every time you have sex with your partner. And that's not realistic. It's just not.
Exactly. And that is both a hazard of the performers who engage in that kind of porn and in the viewers, because it portrays a type, but you know, and here's the other thing, Ashton. Like, this is not a news flash. I don't understand why this isn't just like a thread in everything we talk about, but I feel a little like Dr. Obvious here. Nothing we fucking see, Ashton, is realistic.
Well,
Okay?
right,
Nothing we see
right.
anywhere is realistic. You know, what we're looking at on social media, that's all curated. Everything we watch on TV, the movies, everything we stream. You know, if you're still nostalgic and you still subscribe to hard copy magazines, nothing in that is real. Nothing in that is real. And I guess it is important. It is important for us to question the realism in all of these different types of media.
Mhm.
It's an important part of the conversation. I don't know why I
Yeah.
find it exhausting, but it is, because
Yeah.
nothing is fucking real, guys. Nothing is fucking real. Why do we expect porn to be real? It's not real. And like you said, do you want to see the razor bumps? I don't think any of us want to see it in real life.
I mean, I like short anecdotal that's not too like self exposing is like I for the longest time, well not longest in my adolescence years, I truly thought that you were only having good sex if you were making a lot of noise. And that's because of what I had seen in porn, and that is not always true for every person or situation. And it's like I had to almost unprogram a level of performativeness as I was getting older and like having more relationships and more experiences. I was like, wait a minute. Am I doing this because I think it's what I should be doing based on what I've seen, or is that literally what I want to be doing? And I think a lot of women feel this way. Also, it's just historically harder for women to have a good time. Or I'm sorry, let me be clear.
When they're
Orgasm.
zoomed out and worried about what they're looking like and sounding like and their performance quality.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. And I think that when people are really entrenched in porn, another downside is that they can become less responsive to typical sexual stimuli. The normal aspects of physical interaction no longer turn them on, and it results in needing more extreme forms of stimulation, more novel experiences, which can certainly frustrate a partner, especially if the partner is like not very curious about sex, isn't really experimental, and doesn't evolve to meet their partner's ever increasing sexual needs. Another problem with the culture of porn is that there's very little communication in porn. And so it often portrays sexual encounters without mutual consent or anybody guiding the other person, which has to happen in a real relationship.
Yep.
And then there's the aspect of like, if one partner uses porn in secret, and the other disapproves, which is usually how it works, it can lead to feelings of betrayal, insecurity, it can erode trust, it can cause jealousy, and it can create distance.
Is that normal to feel insecure if your partner watches porn? I mean, I guess that's subjective, pending how you feel about it as a whole. But I don't know if that's something that you've seen or been told from your clients.
I think any feeling you have is normal. It's what you do with that feeling that lands you into normal or abnormal behavior. There's a million reasons why having a partner who watches porn might make you feel insecure. These are actors, and they meet a physical aesthetic that most of us don't reflect. They're very attractive. They also have bodies that meet societal ideals or surgeons who help them get there. I don't know. And they simplify sex in a way that I hope most people understand does not translate to relationship sex.
Yeah.
Again, see above, they are actors. If your partner watches porn and that makes you insecure, it doesn't mean that porn is a problem. Your insecurity is a problem, and it's your problem. Even if your partner stops watching porn, they're going to have fantasies. So then what then becomes the next step? Are you going to police their thoughts?
Yeah.
Are you going to stop them like from watching TV or movies because the actors are more attractive than you are? Like, where do you draw the line? Are you going to forbid them from being on social media? Are magazines no longer permissible? Like, I just feel like it broadcasts a level of insecurity that makes me limp. And I don't even have a phallus.
Here is the only thing that I could think of where it would be drawing the line. It's understanding if your partner watches porn and they share with you the type of porn that they're watching. So if they're like getting off to porn that is vastly different than the kind of sex that you're having, or the people in the porn look completely different than you, I'm just speaking personally, I would then question, okay, I want to understand why that's fulfilling for you. If there's something that I can do that I'm not doing that you're getting from this porn. You know what I mean? Like, if it was something just so out of pocket or just so vastly different, I'd be like, huh, okay, that does raise a little bit of a flag for me out of curiosity.
I get it. But also, then again, back to where do you draw the line? Are you no longer watching television in which people other than you are represented?
But we're not always seeking out, we don't always know what's going to happen in a television show, or if there's a sex scene. Like, it's not, it just happens. When a lot of people, when they're looking for porn, they're intentional about what they're looking for, and they
Okay.
know what they're, you know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like you're looking that out. It's different than like, oh, I saw this one thing, it turned me on. But some people, like most people, I feel like know what they're looking for. And if you have a niche or, a category of porn,
Or if
that
you've just been raised in America and you've been shown one specific aesthetic as the ideal, back to what fires together, wires together, if that's what you've been taught to be attracted to, and yet you're in love with your partner and you're attracted to them for different reasons, why is it not okay to be gratified through a standard way if that's what you're watching? Why would you know what I mean?
I
Like
do.
maybe
I
it is
do.
about the novelty. I don't know.
Or the taboo of it all. People get off on taboo. I mean, it's like Google it. I mean, everyone knows historically. I guess I'm just playing devil's advocate for understanding the insecurity behind, or feeling insecure about porn, because I
Like
intrinsically
I said,
don't.
it's totally okay to have any feelings you have. I
Mhm.
think that open communication is the pathway towards dispelling some of your concerns, getting information. But for somebody who is like viscerally insecure around a topic, like tends to be really insecure around social media. Like, are you going out with your partner and like if they look at another woman or glance up from their menu, you're like tracking who they're looking at? The
I
whole thing
know,
just
but
feels I have
it's
I have
common. It
been
is common.
and it's fucked. Let me just say it's fucked. I've been in relationships like that. And that is not just a slippery slope. That is a you're on a mountain and you are over your skis. You are skiing over your knees are over your skis there. And that is quickly going to a place of control. And I
Mhm.
find that reprehensible.
Yeah.
Not that
I've
you asked.
No, but I agree with you. And I've been in situations like that with partners where I'm like,
Right.
oh,
And so like I don't want to go out to dinner and feel like I can look at my menu or I can look at my partner.
also
I mean,
I've noted just like a partner before, oh, that's a very attractive person. And my partner has done the same. And I'm just like, yeah, objectively, that's an attractive person. Am I now throwing our entire relationship into question because you found an attractive person attractive?
thank you.
No, I'm not. But I have had partners where I've said a comment, not something inappropriate, like, oh man, I would just love to climb him like a tree. I would just be like, oh, he's
Things I don't need to
attractive
hear.
looking.
Yeah. Do a podcast with your niece, they said. The point of
Anyway,
the matter is that like, right, we are going to be attracted to other people throughout our lives. We are visual creatures. Just because we're attracted doesn't mean we're going to mount them. So can we
right.
just acknowledge that we're sexual beings and that other people are attractive to us and then move on with our lives?
Yeah.
Like, how are you? It just feels like we're legislating or each other's thoughts and beings, and it feels like there's an encroachment happening that I feel like a straitjacket when I just think about it.
Yeah. The only thing that I will say, and then we can move on to the next question, is where it would bother me is if you're with your partner and they are consistently making comments
Oh my
about
God,
other people.
but that's so disrespectful.
I
Like
agree. I just want to like set that standard where like,
a
and I can't,
hundred
if it's
percent.
happening all the time, that's not okay. Like there are inside thoughts, and then we can, you know, let some things out. But yeah, if this
Agreed.
the frequency of those comments and those situations, I think are important to take into
Agreed.
consideration.
100%. I totally agree with
Um,
you.
so besides the obvious, which is asking questions and communicating, how do you recommend bringing up concerns about your partner's porn use without triggering, shame, guilt, discomfort, defensiveness?
So much of it's going to be about the energy that you bring to the discussion and the way you manage yourself during it. If you're watching this on video, don't respond the way I just responded to the last question. That's too intense. That's like too much. You want to approach it And you want to have an open, non-judgmental conversation about your concerns, about your boundaries, and about your expectations. So I think you need to state from the outset that the purpose, the intention behind expressing or having this conversation is to express your feelings and to have a conversation, a dialogue with your partner, that they're not in trouble and that you just want to be heard. When you do that, your partner's own nervous system begins to relax a little bit. They breathe. They're more open to hearing what you're saying. They're in the parts of their brain that are not frightened. When your partner is frightened, they can't think clearly. So then, once you've stated your intention, make sure that you're communicating your feelings using I statements. Stay away from facts. Talk about your feelings. And then try and dial up your curiosity and ask your partner what using porn does for them. What needs does it meet? And really hear what they're saying. And the way you communicate to your partner and ensure that you are hearing what they're saying, the way you communicate to them that you're truly listening is by paraphrasing back what you heard the partner say, which tells them that you're listening, and find something about their feelings that makes sense to you. Because whether you agree with how they land in their feelings or not, what facts resulted in their feelings are universally okay. And we can always, open-minded people who are capable of abstract thought, and I think that's all of our listeners, can always land on something about somebody else's feelings that makes sense to them. The essence of abstract thought is that we can see things from multiple perspectives. So take your step out of your shoes, try and hear it from a different perspective, and then validate your partner's feelings by saying, it makes sense to me that you would feel, insert their feeling here, and then tell them why it makes sense to you. And that's how we validate. Once you guys are in a rhythm of dialoguing and you're not arguing, only if you're not arguing, you can ask if they'd be open to hearing some requests that you have around their porn use. But I would say this, before you bring up your concerns to your partner, you should ask yourself what your goal of the conversation is. Why are you bringing up concerns about your partner's porn use? What do you want the outcome to be? If you could persuade them to do anything, what would you want? I think getting clarity on that first is important, because maybe you just want to share your feelings because keeping them bottled up has been causing resentment or trust issues. Getting clarity on the purpose of the conversation is really important, because that becomes your roadmap through the entire conversation. And when you're curious, when you're using your relationship skills, when you've set up a conversation to be all about safety, your partner is so unlikely, so less likely to be defensive, to feel criticized, to feel cornered, to feel trapped, to feel like they're in a double bind. And by double bind, I mean like nothing they say is going to be okay. Again, when we ask questions, we want our partners to, over time, get the sense that any answer is okay. We cannot ask a question with a prescribed answer in mind. That's not cool. That's bullshit.
Pending the question. But
what do you mean?
Like if you're asking a question that is, that is a deal breaker or breaks a boundary, a personal boundary, I mean, you can't always, have that objectivity going into asking questions.
If you think your partner, that's a real important point. So let me do that then from a different, so you, my listener, are in a relationship with somebody, and at the outset or within the relationship, you both agreed that porn is not cool. You're not going to use porn. You're not going to view it. You're not going to watch it. You're not going to be a consumer of it. And then you find out, or you sense that your partner is watching porn. That is different. And then you need to say, so here, I don't want you to create a false sense of safety with your partner. I want you to come to the table and say, I want to have a conversation with you about our relationship, and it's serious. I I have some concerns. And let me know when you're ready to have the conversation. Partner says, I'm ready to have it now, because who the fuck wants to sleep on that and wait for another day? I mean, that'll sober you up real fast. Also, don't initiate that if either of you have had anything to drink or use. And then you start with your partner, and I think you have to say, we agreed that we weren't going to watch porn. And I'm really concerned that you are watching porn.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, you're expressing a concern. You're not coming heavy-handed to them, but you're also not bullshitting them, pretending that this is just a dialogue about my feelings. Like, it's not that. It's a serious conversation, because they've breached an agreement, a term, a point of entry. They've breached, the cost of admission to being in a relationship with you. Then it's okay. But even there, if you come at it in a softer way, you're more likely to get real deep answers from your partner. And even if the relationship has to end, you can end it with dignity. You have to end things with dignity.
Yeah. I mean, we certainly should try. So, dramatic pivot, is porn addiction real? And how can someone help their partner if they struggle with it or suspect they struggle with it? Because I feel like maybe a lot of people don't know they're addicted to porn until it might be a little too late.
So the answer is no. There is no such thing as porn addiction, right? Okay, it doesn't mean that there aren't problems around it.
Right.
It doesn't mean that the concept of porn addiction is controversial. Some experts argue that people can develop compulsive behaviors around pornography.
But is that sex addiction?
Fair. No, it's not in the DSM-5. The American Psychological Association tells us that it doesn't exist, and that's our Bible, and that's what we have to go off of. I've got plenty of issues with the APA. That's a whole other conversation for another day. And that manual changes over time. Being gay used to be in it. Being transgender used to be in it. So the fact that this is not in it. Listen, a lot of people who cheat use addiction as a way of contextualizing or categorizing their compulsive behaviors in a way where they're not held accountable for it. So people can develop compulsive behaviors around pornography in much the same way they can develop compulsive behaviors around sex, but the evidence and the experts in my field say that it doesn't apply in the same way that it does for drugs and alcohol. So what we do is we categorize it under the broader category of compulsive behaviors or problematic sexual behaviors. PBS, not the network. Problematic sexual behaviors.
Which could be a less sexual network, by the way.
The American Psychiatric Association doesn't recognize porn addiction as a formal diagnosis. That said, many clinicians report seeing patients with behaviors around pornography that negatively impact their relationships, work, or well-being. So here's my short answer. If you're using porn and it is an exit from the relationship, if it interferes with the relationship so that it's a main topic in your relationship, it's a problem. And whether it's an addiction or not, it's a problem. So if you're worried about it, go see either a certified couples therapist or a certified sex therapist. If they don't have the certification, they don't have the training to guide you through this. I don't have the training to guide someone through this because I am neither a couples therapist nor a sex therapist. Thank God, because I have enough things on my plate. My job is hard enough. But by all means, if something, every couple knows like the top 2 or 3 things that are recycled complaints that they're hearing from their partner over and over and over again. If porn is up there, you got a problem.
Yeah.
There, you've got a problem. It does not, you don't have to be an addict to want to drink less or use less drugs. We don't need the label of addiction to be healthier. A problem is a problem if it's constantly being discussed in your house or in your relationship or in your relationships with your friends or with your family or in the workplace, which porn would not be. But I'm saying any topic.
Work from home
would be.
could be a problem.
Or maybe it would be. Or maybe it would be.
I also just want to quickly zoom out for people who aren't in relationships and where they might think they have a problem with porn because it might even inhibit them from getting into one. And I think to your point, anything that affects the way you live and any relationship outside of like a romantic partnership, if it's affecting you in a way that like changes how you interact, how you live your day, is a problem. Because truthfully, when I've ever heard of porn addiction, it's possible that people are single struggling with this and they can't sustain a relationship because they have this incredibly skewed dynamic of sexuality and, you know, the opposite gender, and they may think they are not worthy.
Or the same gender, doesn't matter.
Yeah, or the same gender. I just wanted to shed light for people who aren't in a relationship, who are listening, who may have or do struggle with thoughts of, do I have a problem with this? Because they don't have a partner to call them out. So what are the signs that porn may be negatively affecting your relationship, and how can couples address it constructively?
So, decrease in sex. If one person's excessive porn use leads to a lack of interest in sex, that's a problem, particularly if the partner finds it to be a problem. If it's now created an incompatibility, one person's sexual needs aren't being met. If a partner feels the need to hide or lie about their porn consumption, that can erode the trust between partners and foster, a feeling of betrayal in the relationship. Boom, that's a problem. If a significant amount of time is spent watching porn and it's pulling you out of activities, either with your partner or it's taking up your downtime, or God forbid, your video's off during Zoom and you're working hybrid, you definitely want to examine that. And so if you think that you have a problem with porn and you don't want to go to therapy because either you don't want to go to therapy or you can't afford it, there is a 12-step program called SLAA, Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous. I'll have a link to that in the show notes. I have been to more 12-step programs over the years with clients who didn't want to go alone, and I would go with them.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not gratuitous. It's my job. It's what I signed up to do, to be a therapist. And what I will tell you is in those rooms, I have heard some of the most amazing stories about people. So SLAA, the group is usually together. They don't separate the love addicts from the sex addicts, which I think is weird because they're very different problems, but I don't think there's enough of the one cohort to like have its own group. I remember meeting this man, this single guy in his 20s in New York, and he was bleeding from how often he was masturbating. He had just gotten fired from like the second job he had because he was constantly in the bathroom jerking off. And he was rubbing himself raw. And it was such a compulsive behavior for him because now here's how we know we have a compulsion. He did it to celebrate. He did it to sleep at night. He did it to self-soothe. He did it when he was uncomfortable. He did it when he was stressed out. He did it under almost every imaginable situation. He did it constantly. And he had just lost his second job and he was single. So SLAA is such an amazing resource for people. It's not part of our topic, but what would qualify one to be a love addict?
That's another episode, 1000%.
Okay, so we should put that on our list of topics to cover.
That's what my last ex tried to tell me that he was exploring when the cheating scandal came out. He was like, I'm looking into Love Addicts Anonymous. And I was like,
what did I just tell you that people who cheat do? No, it's a perfect example. That is literally why it's not currently in the DSM. Doesn't mean it won't be. I keep pointing over my shoulder. It's down there. You can't see it. It's not in my bookcase.
I've seen it. It's there.
So I will have that link to SLAA in the show notes.
So we've talked so much about the negative aspects of porn. Let's explore if there's any healthy ways to use porn as a way to explore fantasies with your partner. And is there any way that it could actually improve intimacy and be positive in a relationship?
I couldn't believe how much negativity there was about porn. Like,
Well,
I
it's not all
literally
our fault. It's not our fault. It's
not. I
society's.
had to follow the research, and most of the research was on the negativity of porn. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It talked about people's concerns about porn. But yes, porn can be a great thing for people. You can use porn as a way to learn about your fantasies, your partner's fantasies, in the safety of your home without worrying about judgment. You don't have to go to a sex party. You could like literally just queue up Pornhub. It can also offer new ideas and inspire new ways of connecting with your partner physically. Whether you're single or in a relationship, it can teach you about things that you might be interested in. It could introduce elements into your sexual relationship that you would not have thought of on your own. It can normalize desire. You guys, we are sexual beings. It's okay to fantasize. It's okay to have sex. It's okay to masturbate. It's okay to watch porn. A lot of us are raised with shame around our sexual desires, particularly through religious organizations. Watching porn can help normalize our desires. It can increase our confidence around our sexuality, and it can make us more open, which, by the way, is just going to enhance how attractive you look to anybody, because confidence is universally attractive. And it can build emotional intimacy, because when you stretch to watch porn together, especially if it's not like the easiest thing in the world for you guys to watch, that's vulnerable. And whether it's through porn or through having conversations about porn or having conversations about sex, that can deepen your emotional intimacy, and sharing vulnerable aspects of yourself can make both of you guys feel so much closer. So yeah, porn is not just a spawn of the devil. Some elements of it can be problematic, like anything else in life, kids. A street can be dangerous. You got to look both ways. Porn is just a tool, and you get to decide whether you use it for good or whether you use it to create space between you and the people you love.
Absolutely. And on that positive note,
Why don't you read us out?
We Need to Talk with Dr. Darcy Sterling is a Sterling Standard production. Editing and sound engineering by Bart McGall. Our theme music is by Trending Music. Special thanks to Amanda Christiani and Preston Smith. If you know someone who spends too much time clearing their browser history or looking through their partners, you should probably share this episode with them. We'll be back on Tuesday with another episode packed with the relationship, dating, and mental health hacks you've come to expect. References are always linked in the show notes.
Thank you, Ashton.
Thank you.